Now we are sitting here. If there is a rabbit out there, a rabbit, and we are sitting here, and I said, no, I checked, I didn't see the rabbit. If I didn't see the rabbit, maybe my eyes, deceived me. If the rabbit is there, then that is the reality. Me saying the rabbit is not there doesn't make the rabbit to disappear. Why am I saying this? Why? Because you realize that from the beginning of our lesson, we spoke about divine worldview and materialist worldview. What is divine worldview? Divine worldview is a group of people who think that there is creator, there is God. So they believe that there is God. And there is another group of people who believe that there is no God. But like as I told you, whether we say there is God or we say there is no God, it is our claim. It is your claim. It is only when your claim conforms with the reality outside, then you are the truthful. But what you claim, if it doesn't conform with what is outside, then it is your claim. It is the lie. Like as I mentioned, if I say something and the reality, let's say for instance, I say, hey, today the weather is cold and I'm shaking. Oh, the weather is cold. The weather is cold and I'm shaking. Me saying the weather is cold doesn't make the weather to be cold. It is only when the weather is cold, then I am telling the truth. But if the weather is not cold, it means I am not telling the truth. I hope it's clear. Maybe I see a horse in a distance, right? And then my eyes said to me, no, it's not a horse, but it is a donkey, for instance. Then I said, no, come and see a donkey. Then you said, no, it's not a donkey, it's a horse. I said, no, it's a donkey. Because that is what I see, because it's a little bit far from me. When I say it's a donkey, that doesn't make it to be donkey. If it is a horse, it remains a horse. It is myself that I am confused. Instead of thinking that, instead of knowing it as it is, that is a horse, my eyes deceived me to think it's a donkey. So when we come to knowing God, we have two main, group of people. Like as we spoke from the beginning of the lesson, we have those who have the divine worldview, divine. What is their understanding? They believe that there is God. Okay. And we have materialists also. They believe that there is no God. So if you believe there is God, it doesn't mean just because you believe there is God, there is God. No, it must conform with the reality. It's like when I say this is a donkey and it is a horse. Just to say that no, it's a donkey doesn't make it to be donkey because it is a horse. The same way if I say Allah doesn't exist, that is my belief. If it doesn't conform with the reality, then it's a lie. I'm lying to myself. Okay. Now, what is the most important thing here? Let's just go to the board. Okay. So, knowing God. We want to know God. Right? How are we going to know God? If I tell you that there is food that is being prepared outside here, and the food, it will be very delicious. How will you know that the food will be delicious? You smell the aroma of the food. No way, the food will be delicious. Okay, imagine if you've lost your sense of smell. How are you going to know the food will be delicious? You wouldn't know because you've lost your sense of smell. I hope it's clear. The same way, if I say, can you hear that brother who is reciting Quran? Ooh, his voice is nice. What are you going to do? pay attention. I said, yes, I can hear. Imagine if you can't hear. Can you know that the presentation is nice or not? You wouldn't know. But it doesn't mean because you cannot smell, because you cannot hear, it means that the voice of that fellow is not nice. So the same way, now that we have two main groups, divine worldview and materialist worldview, what becomes important now? How are we going to know that the claim of group number A or group B, who is right? How do we know? How do we know that those who believe that God exists, they are right? And those who believe that God doesn't exist, they are right? How do we know? Aha, so now what we do? We examine these people, like all of us. We look at how do you know? If I say something smells nice, how do you know? Look at how our creations, the way we are created. All of us, we have noses. So if I say the food smells nice, you don't borrow somebody's nose to smell it. You smell it, your own nose, and then you take a judgment. If I say something is shiny and is very beautiful, you don't borrow somebody's eyes to go and look at it with. You use your own eyes to look at it with. If I tell you that, hey, I am very hungry, for instance, okay? You don't enter into my stomach to know I'm hungry. You also understand what hunger is. Because exactly what I have to feel hungry, you also have it. I don't know if you have someone talking about. Okay? So you see that the reality out there, whatever that we need to know the reality, whether we believe in God or we don't believe in God, all of us we have. Okay? So if something is white, the one who believes in God knows that is white. The one who doesn't believe in God knows it's white. How does he know? Because he can see. 2 plus 2 is 4. The one who believes in God knows it's 4. The one who doesn't believe in God knows it's 4. How? Because he can think. I have it clear. So you see that human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after he created us, he gave us 3 important things. We have knowledge by acquisition. We acquire knowledge. What is knowledge? I told you knowledge is the reality out there. So you acquire it. There is a rabbit there, that is knowledge. You have to go and acquire to say, yeah, what I heard is true. There is a rabbit there. So they say there is God. How do you know? You have to go and acquire it. So when it comes to acquire knowledge, every human being has the ability to acquire knowledge, unless if he has some problems. And how do we acquire knowledge? We acquire knowledge through senses, through our eyes, through our nostrils, through our tongue, through our ears, and through our body. We can feel. So if we don't have eyes, things that we are supposed to see to know them, because we don't have eyes, we wouldn't see them. Because we don't have eyes. If we don't have nostrils, or we lose our sense of smell, when they say the food smells nice, we cannot. But if everything is perfect, meaning that we are okay, there is nothing wrong with us, then you will see that these 5 senses, they will work perfectly. So anything that we know through our senses, the senses becomes what? Intermediate between us and that particular thing. Okay. The senses becomes, intermediary. I need the middle, instrument between us and the knowledge itself. Like for instance, a lion. Do you know a lion? Immediately I said a lion, you had a picture of lion in your mind. How did you immediately have the picture? Because your eyes saw a lion some time ago. And then the eye took the picture of that lion. And then it's stored in your brain. And therefore, when I say a lion, even though there is no physical lion in your mind, but you have the image of it in your mind. How do you get the image? It is through eyes. The same way I can say sugar is very sweet. And you can see that what I'm saying is true, isn't it? How do you know? Because you have tasted sugar before. And you've preserved the sweetness of sugar in your mind. And therefore, whenever I mention sugar, the sweetness comes, you understand. So if I tell you sugar is bitter, you'll tell me, no, it's not. It's sweet. But right now, there's no sugar in your mouth. How do you know it is sweet? Yes, because you tasted it before and you stored the sweetness of it in your mind. The same way when I say it's cold, you know what is cold. Why? Because you felt it before with your body and you saved it. So you are maybe in Zambia. I say, hey, today is very cold in South Africa. Even though you are in Zambia, but you understand what I'm talking about. Why? Because previously you felt cold and then you stored the coldness in your brain. So meaning that is how you learn. You learn. Through your senses, you acquire so many things. Okay. So any knowledge that we need something to help us to know from outside, we call it knowledge by acquisition. We acquire it. And whether we believe in God or we don't believe in God, we have that ability to acquire knowledge through acquisition. I don't know if it is clear. So atheist knows what is white. A believer knows what is white. There is no difference. Atheist knows what smells nice. A believer knows what smells nice. There is no difference. Atheist knows it's cold. A believer knows it's cold. Why? Because an atheist has 5 senses. And a believer also has 5 senses. Atheist has the intellect. A believer also has the intellect. So 2 plus 2 is 4 for atheists, and 2 plus 2 is equally 4 for the one who believes in God. So all these forms of knowledge that you have to acquire, we call them knowledge by acquisition. Now let's come to knowledge by presence, so it will be much more clear. What is knowledge by presence? Knowledge by presence are knowledge that you don't acquire them with your eyes, with your nose, with your ears, with your sense of feeling, with your tongue. Like what? I'm hungry. How do you know you're hungry? You feel it within yourself. You don't look at your stomach to say, I'm hungry. Or you have to look at your stomach to say you're hungry. No. You feel that you are hungry. So these types of knowledge, we call them knowledge by presence. Nobody teaches you to know how to be hungry. Within yourself, you have that ability to know that you are hungry. You don't need to press your stomach to say, it's like I'm hungry. No, you don't need. You feel it. So we call them knowledge by presence. Okay? It's like laugh. I laugh. If you laugh something, how do you know you laugh? You feel it within yourself. And the reason why we all understand love or we all understand hunger is because we all feel it. Hunger is not like a goat. Then I said, do you know goat? You say, no, this is a goat. No, goat, I need the eyes to see it. So because you have eyes, I point to you, this is a goat. But what about hunger? What about, love? What about hatred? Hatred, you don't need. You can hate someone. But if you see him, you pretend you love him. And he wouldn't know. Because hatred is what? It's a feeling within self. You hate him, but when you see him, Salaam alaikum, then you hug him, then you kiss him. But you know you hate him. So somebody will see you hugging him. The person, by seeing what you are demonstrating, he will think that you love him. But you yourself, I don't like this person. The same way love. You can love someone, but you think if you show him that love, he will take advantage of it. So when you see him, you dismiss him. Because he knows you love him. He can take your shoe today, another he takes this one, he takes that one. So you want to dismiss that. So you love him so much. But when you see him, you just pretend as if you are serious. How are you? How are you? How is he going to know you love him? He wouldn't know. Why? Because love, hatred, like feeling hungry, they are inborn thing. So nobody can use their eyes to enter in my stomach to know I'm hungry. Nobody can use their ears to put on my chest to know that I am angry. Nobody can use their ears to put on my heart to know that I am happy. Nobody can do that. So this kind of knowledge, we call them, they are knowledge by presence. So we have two: knowledge by acquisition and knowledge by presence. I want you to take note of these two important knowledge, because remember, these are the knowledges we are going to use to know the reality. And we say the reality is outside. Okay. So if we don't know them very well, it will be very difficult for us to know the reality. Are we together? Let me just summarize this two. Knowledge by acquisition. We acquire. I need to see to know. I have acquired through my eyes. I need to smell to know. I have acquired through my nose. So that means if I don't have eyes, what I saw to keep the picture in my mind, I wouldn't have seen it. So I wouldn't have that knowledge through seeing. What I smelled, and I acquire knowledge that it smells nice. I can only know it through my nose, because I have nose. If I never had nose, I wouldn't have had that knowledge. The same way taste, the same way hearing, the same way feeling. So these knowledges, we call them knowledge by acquisition, or 2 plus 2. 2 plus 2 is 5. Is that true? Why is not true? Why is not? Who can tell me? Why 2 plus 2 is not 5? Yes. So you see, logically it doesn't make sense. And why do you call it logically? For every human being who has an intellect must know that 2 plus 2 is not 5, it is 4. So the truth of 2 plus 2 is the reality. Whether I subscribe to it or I object to it, it doesn't change the reality. I hope it's clear. So this form of knowledge, we call them, they are knowledge through acquiring. We call it knowledge by acquisition. And then we have presence. Presence is the opposite of acquisition. Those ones, you don't need this eye, nose, ears, the tongue, and the sense of feeling to know. No, those ones, you know them within yourself. You are hungry, you know it. You don't see to know that you are hungry. You don't like someone. You don't need to look at your heart to say, my heart, you don't like this guy. I didn't know you don't like him. No. You feel it within yourself. Okay? Nobody teaches you that knowledge. You are born and it is inbuilt in yourself. We call them knowledge by presence. Okay. So if you look at last week, the lessons we had, whether it is intellectual understanding, whether it is experimental understanding, whether it is, devotional understanding, they are based on these two important knowledge by presence and knowledge by acquisition. Now let's come to the third one. We call it cognition through intrinsic nature. Allah. You see, everybody has intrinsic nature. And sometimes you will learn through this intrinsic nature, which is neither the knowledge by presence or knowledge by acquisition. Even though some say cognition through knowledge by intrinsic nature is knowledge by presence. Let me give you an example. You see, you know yourself. How do you know yourself? You don't look at yourself to know yourself. You don't use the eyes, right? You don't wake up in the morning to look at your leg to say, oh, I'm alive. You look at your hand to say, oh, mashallah, I'm still alive. You don't need that. If somebody does that, then it's a problem with him. Okay? Neither you don't wake up in the morning to think about yourself to say, hey, am I still alive? No, you don't need. How do you know yourself? Knowing yourself is its intrinsic nature. Thinking cannot know who you are, or seeing cannot know who you are, because your intrinsic nature is above thoughts and vision or sense perception. Okay? It's like, you go somewhere and you say, hey, I'm lost. You call. Salam alaikum, Molana, I'm lost. What are you saying if you say you're lost? Does it mean you don't see yourself? You don't see the clothes you're wearing? If you say you are lost, you can still see yourself. You can see the shoes you are wearing. You can see the clothes you are wearing. Then why do you say you are lost? Your lost is because where you are not familiar with it. But you yourself, you cannot be lost to yourself. That is why when we are born, from the very day we are born, this intrinsic nature works. You don't see the day you are growing. You don't see the day you are getting taller. Before you realize you are like this, before you realize you are like that, you are like that, you are like that. And it's still you. You don't doubt that, no, I was not the same person 5 years ago. Or is there the one who doubts 5 years ago it was him or it wasn't him? Then there is something wrong. You see, there is this joke they say, somebody got so tired and then he went to take this shisha. He smoked shisha, he became so tired and exhausted, and now he can't even know what is going on. So he put one of his legs on top of the other. So it was time for him to go home with his friends. When he was about to stand up, he can't see one of his legs. Then he's asking his friends, where's my leg? Why? Because the shisha has influenced his mind to a level where he can't even find the other leg. And he forgot that he put this leg on this other leg and said, where is my leg? And then his colleague started laughing at him to say, this is your leg. You can't use. Oh, sorry. I forgot. I didn't see my leg. Is this possible? Why? Because you don't need to think to know your leg. Neither you don't need to look at to see your leg. Knowing your leg is part of your intrinsic nature. So they say, I know myself. Knowing myself is part and parcel of intrinsic nature, which you don't require knowledge by acquisition, neither you require knowledge by presence. You don't need any of those knowledges. Is there any question so far? I'm sure you are following. Please, those online, if you have any question, just type it or you can speak. We can hear you. Okay? So when it comes to intrinsic nature, whether we are Muslims, whether we are atheists, each and everyone has intrinsic nature. Everybody has it. Now, in conclusion, when it comes to intrinsic nature, intrinsic nature gives us the three important things. Three very important. What is it? Number one, it says different creatures all have a similar intrinsic nature within their species. You see, we have males, we have females, we have tall, we have short, we have black, we have white. Okay, we have all sorts of different types of human beings, but they all have knowledge by presence, knowledge by acquisition, and more importantly, intrinsic nature. So nobody doubts who they are, and nobody thinks to know who they are. Nobody see themselves to know who they are. No, knowing yourself is within yourself. They call it consciousness. The consciousness that is in you, that is what makes you every day, from the very day you are born until the day you depart from this dunya, you constantly aware of who you are. Okay, so it's for everybody, Muslim, non-Muslim, everybody has that. So Muslim says that although there may be variation with regards to it being strong or weakness, some their intrinsic nature is a little bit weak. Like for instance, atheists. Atheists who is arguing that God doesn't exist, he has intrinsic nature. Let me give you an example. You see, if you believe in God, you are referring to your intrinsic nature. That is why when you are in danger, you seek the help of God. You are driving and your car starts to fall from the cliff. What do? You start feeling some heaviness within yourself. And you're asking Allah, please, Allah, save me. Even an atheist, you know that happens to him also. Somebody can say there is no God. But wait until his car is falling from the cliff. He will start to say, I need some superpower to help me. I need some magic to help me so that I don't die. So you see, that feeling, everybody has it. But when you are comfortable, you can deny to say, no, God doesn't exist. And you use your mind, acquired knowledge to say, if you think, where is Allah? Why can't we see? Because you are comfortable. Wait when you are engaged. Wait when you hear gunshots in your area, or maybe where you are starting, and then one gun pass through your ear. I start saying, you need some power, extraordinary power to save. So that is part of your intrinsic nature. So that is why when we spoke about, everybody's a scientist. What did we say? Sense of inquisitivity. Every human being has that. Every human being wants to know. And within sense of inquisitivity, we have sense of religiosity. Every human being is born as a person who knows God. In your nature, you know God. You can use your mouth to deny. But in reality, your nature knows God. That is why when you are falling from the cliff, You need supernatural, being to help you. That is why when a gun passes by your ear, you need you saw that Donald Trump, was busy talking and then what happened? He died. What is he thinking at that moment? He want to survive. At that moment, he feels like, even he himself, he said, I survived by grace. That is the nature of human being. So with the intrinsic nature, number one, that is what we got. And the second one, we said, things related to the intrinsic nature in the course of history have been determined as being permanent and perpetual. Intrinsic nature is permanent, perpetual, meaning that each and every human being, our intrinsic nature will remain with us and it will never disappear until we die. Okay, so that sense, like knowing who you are, you will never separate yourself from who you are. It won't come a time and then you need to think to know who you are. Of course, sometimes we say somebody doesn't know himself. That has to do with his akhlaq, but not who he is as a person, with that soul that is in himself. No, that one everybody knows. Even those who are, insane, they know themselves. And that knowing is above thoughts. That knowing is above experiment. Okay? So that is what Muslim tells us, that this intrinsic nature is permanent. And it is perpetual. It remains. It will never go away. Okay? That fear falling from the cliff will remain, whether a child is born today, even a child that is born, who has never fell before. If you throw him up, he is scared, because it is intrinsic nature. Okay? The same way, even if you are old, the same way if they throw you up, you will be scared, because it is part and parcel of your intrinsic nature, and it will remain with you until you die. And then the last one is that intrinsic nature is self-sufficient from educating and training. I mean, nobody needs to come and teach you that you are you. No. Knowing who you are is self-sufficient. That is why you don't have schools where they teach people who you are. No. Immediately you are born, you know who you are. And even while you are sleeping, the mind now is off. The senses are off. Immediately you wake up, you don't doubt that are you the same person who was sleeping last night. You wake up, you know who you are. How do you know who you are? It is through your intrinsic nature. So Muslim conclude by saying that things related to intrinsic nature in the course of the history have been determined as being permanent. Okay, we just finished that one. We said the intrinsic nature is self-sufficient from education and training. However, it can be intensified and guided through assistance of discipline. But yes, intrinsic nature can be very strong through the assistance of discipline. Yani, you have intrinsic nature. The more you are closer to Allah, the more you wake up for tahajjud, the more you pray, your intrinsic nature becomes emboldened, it becomes stronger and stronger. But even if you don't pray, even if you don't wake up for tahajjud, the intrinsic nature is self-sufficient. And it doesn't need any additions from, before it will be realized. Not by itself, it is. So this is where we come to the end of our lesson today. So in summary, we are talking about knowing God. And we said we have two people or two groups of people. We have divine worldview and materialist worldview. We said divine worldview are those who believe that God exists. And the materialists are the ones who don't believe that God exists. But I told you that the reality is not what I believe. Reality is what is there out there. And therefore, I can believe in my mind that, inshallah, I'm going to be billionaire and I will become the president of South Africa. That is not real. It is my own imagination. In reality, is what is there outside. So if somebody says God doesn't exist, it is all his own imagination. The only time that imagination will be true is when in reality it's true that God doesn't exist. The same way if somebody says God exists, it is his imagination. Until he's able to prove outside that God exists, then his imagination becomes true. Okay. So now we realize that this imagination may come through either knowledge by acquisition or knowledge by presence. Okay. So there are people who say, because we cannot see God, he doesn't exist. So their proof is that we cannot see God with eyes. Is that true? We say no. There are so many things that exist, but you can't see them with your eyes. So do you say those things don't exist? You can't say no. In that case, it means the eyes can deceive you. And therefore, knowledge by acquisition can deceive you, even though it is very useful. It can deceive you to deny the reality. So materialists, what deceived them, they say everything that exists is matter, and we don't have anything that is above matter. Matter means we have to be able to perceive it with our senses. And then we spoke about knowledge by presence. We said knowledge by presence, you don't acquire it. It is within yourself. Like that feeling who you are. Like that sense of curiosity. The sense of religiosity. These are something that is within yourself. When a child is born, nobody teaches the child that when you put milk in the child's mouth, suckle it. No. Immediately the child is born. When they put the milk, what does he do? Who was the teacher? Because it is part of the intrinsic nature of the child. Then we spoke about cognition through the intrinsic nature. And you don't need anybody to teach you who you are. You know who you are. So in your intrinsic nature, there is God. You can even choose to deny it with your mouth. But the reality is that your intrinsic nature recognizes divine world, even if you deny it. Sometimes there are people who deny things. And it's true, but they are denying. Okay, so those are the ways in which we used to know God. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. MashaAllah. So these are the questions that comes from this. What is the most fundamental issues of worldview? As we mentioned, the most fundamental issue of worldview is that we have divine worldview and we have materialist worldview. So the world is divided into these branches. We have atheists who don't believe that God exists. And we have divine who believe that God exists. Okay? And he said, what is the differences between knowledge by presence and knowledge by acquisition? Who can answer? Knowledge by presence and knowledge by acquisition. Yes, I am. No, say what you know. Just say it, and if you are right, if you are not right, also, you'll excellent.
Presence is based on one's views, like to religion, more divine world, and knowledge by acquisition is proving, like it's all in the imagination until you prove that there is a God.
Okay, is there anybody who has a different view from what it says? Knowledge by presence, knowledge by acquisition. Yes.
By being the percentage required to knowledge in general. Like you understand, when small something, like knowledge by presence, and not knowledge by acquisition, like specific programs.
Okay. Is there any different idea from what you said? Remember, I said knowledge by presence. It's knowledge that is within yourself. You don't learn it. I give example of hunger. You don't use your hand to press your stomach to know you are hungry. Why? Because the knowledge is inbuilt. Inbuilt. What is the difference between knowledge by presence and acquisition? Acquisition is something that you acquire it from outside, either through your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, or your body. You acquire it. Presence, you don't need the eye. It is something that you feel within yourself. Like I say, hate. If you hate something, do you know what is hate? Can you show me hate? Why? Because hate is in our presence. Can you show me love? Have you ever seen love walking? No. Why? Because love is presence. The reason why you know the love and hate I'm talking about, because I have that sense of love and sense of hate. That is why you know it. So those ones we don't acquire. They are present in us. The ones we acquire is the ones that we need to use intermediary concepts to see, or to hear, or to touch, or to smell, or to taste. These ones we acquire them, so we need gadget. The gadget of the eye to see, then we know. The gadget of the ear to hear, and we know. To smell and know. So because we need these things, we say we acquire them. You know what I mean to acquire something? You buy them, you purchase them through the senses, 5 senses. But when it comes to, intrinsic nature or knowledge by presence, you don't acquire them, you don't see them. I don't see food before I become hungry. Or do you need to see food before you become hungry? No. If you're hungry, you know it. If you don't like someone, you know it. You don't need to see the person to say, oh, I know I didn't like someone. Oh, is this one that I don't like? No. Because it is intrinsic nature. It is within yourself. So this second question said, what is the difference between knowledge by presence and knowledge by acquisition? Is that knowledge by presence, we don't acquire it. It is within ourselves. And acquisitions are knowledges that we have to acquire them from outside through our senses. This is the difference. I hope it's clear. It's like the lessons were not very clear from the answers you gave. Anyway, let's go to the next question. Can you achieve knowledge by presence through intellectual reasoning? Who can answer this question? Can you achieve knowledge by presence through intellectual reasoning? Is it yes or no? Huh? How?
Like all your senses, like that's like just everyone has its zero. So,
Which of the senses?
like all your 5 senses,
Yes.
like your sensory organs, like every human almost like has access to like those senses.
Okay.
So like
Yeah, but this is the question. The question says that can you achieve knowledge by presence? And I just explained what is knowledge by presence right now. I said knowledge by presence are knowledge that you don't learn them, they are within yourself. Okay? So then said, can you achieve knowledge by presence through intellectual reasoning? Is it yes or no?
no, but it can be yes.
That is good. How can it be yes? Give me yes or no. Yeah, let him explain then I'll come to yes.
When you're feeling sick,
Eh?
like when you're feeling sick,
Yes.
you come up with an intellectual reasoning to why you feeling the way you're feeling.
Oh.
When you're upset, be upset about anything, but you literally what's making you upset.
Okay. You see, there is difference between what makes you sick and you are sick. There is difference between upset and what makes you upset. The sense of being upset is in you, whether there is somebody who activates it or not. The sense of love is in you, whether there is somebody who activates it or not. So you become upset not because somebody, the sense of being upset is not because somebody made it, that is why it came into your nature. Your nature, sometimes you become upset. Your nature, sometimes you become happy. But yes, sometimes somebody will be the means to that upset. But he's not the one who created that sense of being upset. We need to differentiate this.
I understand.
Yes.
But sometimes you like start thinking about something too much. And now you yourself get sick too, basically put yourself to be upset. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. Now you are thinking, and then you got it. Okay, let me give you this example. Let's say you are sitting down with a blind person, right? And then you are saying, oh, this color is beautiful. This color, this one is better than this one. Can he know what you are talking about? Why? Because he cannot see. Okay. But you can see. The differences between you now, your eyes can see something outside. And you are explaining what your eyes see outside. But his eyes cannot see outside. So what you are explaining, he cannot understand. It's more or less like being happy or being upset. Being happy, happiness, the sense of being happiness is already in you. It just takes someone to activate it. But it doesn't mean that he is the one who brought it in you. No. If there is no sense of being angry, nobody can activate it, like this blind man. If there is no sense of seeing color, there is nothing you can do for him to see color. Because he doesn't have the sense. But the sense is already there. You see, every human being, there are human beings you will never see them being angry. It doesn't mean that they don't have the sense of being angry. No, they have it. It's just that they have not activated it. Or somebody, you've never seen him loving something. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have the sense of love. But the only thing is that he has not had anything to activate it. So we can't say that because he's angry with this one, that is what brought the anger, the sense of being angry in him. No, in our nature we have that. Okay, so from that angle, this question said, can you achieve knowledge by presence through intellectual reasoning? No. You don't think to know you are hungry. You don't think. It comes through your sense of knowledge by presence. You don't think. You don't think to know that you have the sense of love or sense of anger. No, within you it is there. That is why sometimes something happens before you even think you're already reacting. Because the sense of love or sense of hate is part and parcel of you, like the way you are hungry. A child doesn't need to think that should I suckle the milk from my mother? No, it is within the child. So the mind doesn't play any role in it. Okay? So the answer to this question will be no. Intellectual reasoning doesn't play any role in knowledge by presence. No, it doesn't. It's like when I'm hungry, I feel it. But now what am I going to eat? Then the mind will think about it. So I can't say because now I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat, that is what brought hunger to me. No. Hunger is present. But now what should I eat? Then I will think. So we cannot say thought is the one which created the hunger. No. The same way, I am upset. This guy made me to be upset. But it doesn't mean that he is the one who put the sense of being upset in me. No. In me, I have that sense of being upset. Okay, let's look at the fourth question. It said, what role does acquired knowledge play in helping someone reach knowledge by presence? Who can answer this? What role does acquired knowledge? We know acquired knowledge through senses, right? Acquired knowledge play in helping someone reach knowledge by presence. Does acquired knowledge help in any way? No. Why do you think it's not?
Knowledge by presence is there by nature from birth to death.
Alhamdulillah. But acquired knowledge can enhance it. It can make it to be more visible. It's like when somebody is born, okay? He has the sense of being angry. The more he gets angry every minute, every second, you see that he activates it to the higher level. So you see that we say this guy is quick tempered. Why? Because he has activated the anger. Every 2 days he will be angry. Every 2 days, it's like a child. Let me give you this example. When a child is born, in the nature, in the presence of the child, he revolts, he toy. What is the toy for the child? He cries. Okay? So when the child is disturbed, the only thing he will protest is cry. Then the mother will come and make him. Okay. The mother can make the child to be a child that cries too much. And she can also tame the cry of the child. How? As soon as the child starts to cry, she picks the child. The child will stop crying. Anytime the child is going to cry, she picks the child. But now the child is crying and then the mother doesn't care. Then the child will cry. So now the child is becoming master in crying because the mother doesn't attend to him whenever he is protesting. You see? So if the mother doesn't want the child to cry too much, whenever the child starts to cry, pick the child. So you see that the child will grow and he's not good in crying. Because even though crying is intuition, crying is knowledge by presence, but the mother helped to calm it down. Okay? It's like laughing. Laughing in the house, your mom and dad must teach you, but the sense of love is there. Okay? For instance, if whenever your father comes, your mom goes to him and say, welcome, my husband. Then you see that the children, it will activate the sense of love in them towards the father. You understand? So yes, knowledge being angry activates, the anger, because this guy made you angry. That one made you angry. That one made you angry. That one, then you're always angry. Because this one will make you angry. So now that has enhanced the anger. So this one, we said, what role does acquired knowledge play in helping someone reach knowledge by presence? Then yes, acquired knowledge enhances. It can help to activate and to become so strong. Even though without it, knowledge by presence is self-sufficient. I was clear. Now let's come to the next question. What does fitra, intrinsic nature, means? That is the third one. Who can explain? What is fitra? Yes.
Molana, something that's inhuman, like in human nature. That, like, for example, you know that like fire is going to burn you. We're not gonna go like catch fire or jump into fire.
Yeah, you see, if fire is going to burn you, how do you know fire will burn? How do you know fire is hot? You touch it. And touching is what? Acquiring. You are acquiring. Okay? But when it comes to intrinsic nature, you don't touch it or you don't think about it. Like as we say, your consciousness. You know what is consciousness? Your life, your breathing, you're moving up and down. This is consciousness, is your intrinsic nature. You don't think to know why am I conscious? Because thinking is smaller. It's like you want to take thinking to where it doesn't belong. Okay? So when it comes to this question, what does Petra means? It means that something that is in us that does not require thought and reflection, either through acquisition or by presence. It doesn't need that. You know yourself without thought, you know yourself without reflection. Okay. Now let's look at the other question. Said, what are the key features of things related to intrinsic nature? Those are the three ones that we mentioned. At the end, we said number one, different creatures all have similar intrinsic nature. All of us, we have, even though we are different, but we all have intrinsic nature. Nobody wakes up in the morning to doubt whether they are they or they are not. No. Everybody, we are different, but everybody has that. And number two, we said things related to the intrinsic nature in the course of history have been determined to be perpetual and permanent. Intrinsic nature, and it's perpetual, it doesn't disappear. And then the last one, we said intrinsic nature is self-sufficient from education and training. Nobody trains it, nobody educates it, but it can be enhanced as we mentioned. Knowledge can help it to enhance, to grow, and to be activated. There is a how does intrinsic nature relate to God? Who can answer this? Intrinsic nature. How does it relate to? Yes.
Everyone, anyone in life has a feeling that there is an entity that controls everything.
Masha. You are exactly right. Everybody, like as I said, anybody that will be falling from the cliff, you say, I need that power. So that is intrinsic nature. And intrinsic nature knows God. Even if the person denies God by his mouth, but his real intrinsic nature is aware of God. Now let's come to the last one. It says, is intrinsic nature enough for the average person to know God without intellectual reasoning? It's a little bit tricky. Is intrinsic nature enough without intellectual reasoning? No. Why do you think it's not?
The intrinsic nature of a person, as you said before, they will only think about it once they're holding on to it.
Yeah.
But after that, if they don't have any proper reasoning or anything, you're gonna slowly forget about it and forget out of the lives. So then I think if they use that time and use it to make sure reasoning, that's the only time where they actually learn find a part.
Mashallah. It's a good answer, but it can also be answered in a different way. You see, is intrinsic nature enough for the average person to know God? Yes. We call them, they are simple people. They know that God exists. Okay? But there are people that intrinsic nature alone is not enough. They need argument, they need intellectual argument through acquired knowledge. You have to tell them necessary and possible existence until eventually you can prove to them that God exists. But the simpleton, Now there are people who didn't go to madrasa, he didn't go to school, he didn't go anywhere, but through his intrinsic nature, he knows that there is supernatural power. And it is enough. Inshallah, in the next lesson, we are going to talk about 3 types of people that we have in terms of their knowledge too, and their knowledge of God Almighty. So what's Allah Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. I hope the lesson is not difficult. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Isn't that difficult? Yeah, but you see, when I say something,